Welcome. One more day of our Awaken Your Spiritual Neurons Empire. Today is the 16th day of this 21-day challenge. So, whatever you are, I hope you're having a wonderful time. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about a topic that I believe it's very important in our transformational process. Okay. We're going to talk about, and this is, I'm going to relate, I'm going to start my life a little bit different today. I'm going to give you a spoil of one of the chapters that I'm writing, uh, which relates to bringing darkness uh, into light. Okay. And I'm going to start with kind of like a little scientific poem that I kind of like write in every chapter. But I'm going to start with this one, which actually says like this: Your guilt and shame have been your darkest sins, so you might as well light them up. The secret of those repressed emotions are no longer hidden, for your own willingness to be greater than your past dilemmas have delivered them to a greater level of consciousness. All that rests now at the level of your conscious mind is only the memory of those images that you can use as the fuel to light the fire from your heart. The fire that drives you to a greater good beyond your own awareness. Your past is not your definition. Rather, it is the meaning that you conceal to manifest the purpose of your light. Your darkness is now your transformed ashes into the new sparkles of light that create purposeful, powerful mind. And what do I mean by that? It means that everything that we have been repressing for so long is no longer repressed. So it's about time to let all that out, all of the shame, all of the guilt, everything that has been moving on in a desperate way to manifest inside our mind, inside our intellect. It has to come out somehow, right? Uh, and I tell you that pretty much because of the experience that I have passed through, my entire life. Uh, One of the things, of course, I mean, there were two critical things that I nurture on a I'm not gonna say daily basis. I'm gonna say it in a lifetime. It was guilt and it was shame, and I didn't understand why those two things, were first of all, like unconsciously driving my way to almost be suicidal. Let's say, um, because I made of myself those two things, like the fuels for my victimization. That's that's the reality that I needed to accept. And of course, I wouldn't be telling you this if that wouldn't have somehow been processed on my knowledge, on my understanding, on the knowledge that I acquire from studying and from learning, and of course, seeing other people and understanding other people's issues, but mainly understanding my own situation, understanding my own story, and not the story that people told me, but the story that I felt, the story that I passed through. I mean, with all the pains, with everything that had somehow impacted my life, which I could no longer hold anybody responsible, right? So bringing to light uh, the things that hurt the most Those are the things that people need to heal. Those are the things that um, keeps us from moving forward. And it comes to a point in life in which we really have to look at them not as the things that hurt us, but the things that gave us the opportunity to test ourselves and to prove to ourselves that we are much more greater than those feelings and those emotions. I'm reading a book that is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's a book that is written by Dr. Joe Dispenza. A lot of people know Joe Dispenza for his work in neuroscience, but also in spirituality. Uh, is He's one of my favorite authors because he really knows how to combine the knowledge of science, right, and bring it into a spiritual perspective. And something that he actually mentioned on his book is that unless you're not willing to get off your body consciousness, your environment, and time, right, you're going to continue producing memories uh, and of course feelings that are going to be repetitive over and over and over again because, of course, you have been creating a chemistry in your brain that makes all those thoughts, all those feelings that you have gotten from the past, to be your usual chemistry. So now that we're talking about bringing darkness into light, so how do we do that, right? I mean, that's like the biggest question. And one of the reasons why and I'm going to be open and direct on this, one of the reasons why I carried so much guilt and so much shame was because uh, I had a situation when I was 3 years old. I had a very deep loss in my life, and I was never, um, of course, because I was a kid, of course. Um, I was never put into the opportunity to pass through what I call the mourning process, right? So, what is the mourning process? When somebody, uh, let's say a loved person, goes away, when you lose someone who is attached emotionally, or that you actually know that that individual or that person or that soul or whatever, is attached emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever, right? It's hard for you to let go. And especially when you don't have the consciousness and you don't have, as a child, let's say, you don't have the awareness that, you know, things happen. Yesterday we were talking about, birth and death, right? So when you don't have the awareness and the consciousness of what really death means and what birth means, um, you know, all you do in your unconscious level is act by the instincts of nature, which are, feeling, you know, that you are attached, that you belong to someone and someone belongs to you. When the loss of the loved one is not allowed, or you're not allowed to express in the form of emotions and feelings, those feelings, they get repressed. They actually get condensed in the form of um, behaviors, of course, and attitudes. And not only that, questions in your mind. So passing through the mourning process is something that I call, like, simply, the process of letting go. But letting go not necessarily means just, let it go. No, you have to be aware that people, as human beings, we are all beings made of course, thinking, decisions, but also, and the most important thing, we're made of emotions. We're made of feelings. And when a person is not given the chance to pass through those feelings, what's going to happen is that he's going to be, or she's going to be looking, right, to fulfill and to understand those feelings for the rest of his life. So we have been actually talking in the last series about how important it is, to express feelings that have been repressed, to express emotions that have been condensed in our psyche and precisely in our heart because they hurt, right? And the only reason why those feelings and those emotions are important to be expressed, right, is because they liberate us. They actually, it's like a freedom that you feel, that you take something that, has been bothering you or has been, you know, confronting your mind, your heart, your spirit. And then when you realize and you understand why you pass and why those emotions were repressed, then you're able to resignify a lot of those emotions, and you're able also to resignify the thoughts and the conditioned beliefs that you have created in your mind. And don't take me wrong, most of the conditioned beliefs that we put in ourselves, uh, many of them are conditioned because of the external environment, because of society, because of church, or because of our family, or because of school, and the list actually goes on. But those are the things that we actually put because they are experiences that we learn, right, from the external world. But then what happens is that the information that we perceived from with our five senses, and even with our gut and our temperature in the body or whatever, sensations, everything is perceived through a sensory system. It creates memories, and those memories, they become subjective in our mind. They become something that we in our mind start creating, bigger and bigger and exaggerated uh, images, and we start creating other types of thoughts, including our own limiting beliefs, right? So one of the things about letting emotions to flow freely, right? Even those that have been repressed, is try to understand them so we have an opportunity, of course, to start thinking, maybe what happened in the past wasn't exactly what I thought that it was. And maybe what I used to think or believe about what happened in my past wasn't that much at all my real reality. Okay, but this is something that, of course, you have to pass yourself through that process, right? Without the interference of the external world. That's something that you have to get in isolation. You have to get introspect and somehow, process all those emotions, all those thoughts in your mind, and allow yourself to feel, right? And you have to allow yourself, when I'm talking about feel, is, feel the guilt that you feel, that you know, were carrying all over and all along those years, but also look at fear, look at guilt, or look at shame not as conditioning feelings anymore, but look at them with your self compassionate eyes and with an understanding that you have actually created all those emotions in circumstances that you were not aware of them, and you didn't have at that time the wisdom or the knowledge to understand why did you actually uh, produce those feelings or those emotions, right? So you have to allow yourself to pass through the sadness moments. You have to allow yourself to pass through uh, the moments, that are not that were not pleasant, not to hurt you, but just to them out, just to liberate him. Because the more, and here's the thing, right? Uh, the longer that you take to heal your wounds, the more that you're going to suffer. It's as simple as that. And the only reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm a point in my life in which, man, I'm over my 50s. I'm gonna be 60 pretty soon. And for a long time, I carried, you know, that suffering in my life. I carried darkness. I really cared, I really carried, the biggest and probably the worst sin that I could ever commit against myself, which it was, the feeling of guilt. And that is something that I don't really wish to anybody to carry. That is something that, nobody deserves to carry with the guilt for eternity. Even though when people have condemned you, or even though when people have pointed fingers at you, you know, it doesn't really matter, because life is not about punishment. It's not about um, condemnment. Life is much more about overcoming those emotions and being able to express yourself, being able to express your biggest potential, and being able to express whatever the talents that you have been gifted with, right? Again, despite what any other people might say, right? When you become to a point that you discover, right, that you have a purpose in life, that you have a meaning in life, you're going to be able to move forward, but you're going to be able to actually walk lighter, because you don't carry, those feelings and those emotions any longer, right? So believe me when I say that getting liberated from the dark shadows of, and these are things that the ego actually uh, works very well on trying to maintain, condemn. They are part, of course, of, the human experience. And the biggest challenge, this is the biggest challenge that every human being at some point in time has to actually overcome, and to actually put to the test of it, is to be able to liberate everything that does not longer serve a purpose, right? So we talk about, allowing yourself to pass through that sadness moment of letting go what does no longer serve you, or letting go of the feelings of the people that are no longer with you, or the people that have left you for some reason, right? Life goes on, right? And you deserve much more. You deserve, because you are your own creator. You are your own individual soul, of course, connected to other souls, but some way, I mean, you don't deserve, to maintain emotions repressed for a long time. Okay. So in that process, the process of letting all those feelings that have been repressed, they are part of your healing process. um, because once you realize that they're out, then you realize that you're much greater than that. You start realizing that there are a lot of things that you can do with your life, you know and not even that, sometimes you can actually use those emotions that were repressed, or those experiences that you had in life. You can use that experience actually on your benefit. And that's pretty much what I'm creating you know a purpose on everything that I had experienced in my past, right? Because I know that at some point in time, someone who is today in the present moment suffering or passing through similar situations that I have passed, maybe my story can be the compass to that person. And this is something that I want you to take into account, because in the next couple of series I'm going to talk about something that is very important. And this is something that, despite you might think or not, or what people might have told you, there is something that is very important. Your story matters, right? But it matters to whom? That's the biggest question. All right. So you have to be able, to get in touch with your story. You have to allow yourself, to interpret this story not the way that other people have told you, but the way that you have experienced, the way that you have felt that story, with your weaknesses, with your pains, with your sorrows, with your traumas, with your dilemmas, uh, even with your happy moments, with your achievements, whatever, everything that you have created in your mind, you deserve to just stop, think it over, you know, relive it again, just the way that you felt it. And once you allow yourself to pass through that moment yourself without the interference of anyone, then you can start resignifying. But you resignify it, of course, when you start getting new wisdom, when you start getting other type of knowledge, when you actually get uh, to learn from other people's stories and from other people's experiences. Then you start in your mind, of course, doing what? New neural connections. And your brain starts to do what? Actually, to gain new levels of consciousness. It starts to get into new feelings, right? And then you get to choose whether you want to continue experiencing the same memories, the same emotions that are being repressed, the same behaviors, right? Or you can choose, right, to set them aside and put more significance into whatever is coming new to your life. I remember, and this is something that I bring in my heart. I remember that a long time ago, that was back in like 2017, I started doing yoga. And there was this very special person. I don't maintain any contact with that person anymore. But this person told me something that I carry deep, 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 deep in my heart. And this person told me, when I was at some point in time, I was, telling her a part of my story. She goes and asks me, okay, so is that part of your experience still important? And at the beginning, I questioned myself. Uh, I guess the question that I needed to ask myself is, why am I making, right, the past experience so important to myself? And hear me out, right? When I'm saying that your story matters and your past matters, because your present actually is determined by the present that you're living today, It's pretty much the influence of what you have lived in the past. But your future is not determined or it doesn't have to be determined by whether you have lived in the past or not. You understand? So it comes to a point in which you really need to understand what are the things from the past that, you know, are important to you. What are the things that you need to let go that are not longer part of your story, or that you don't want to actually make part of your story, and just leave them aside. But again, you need to ask the question as to why is the repetitive thought, or why is that repetitive attitude that I have, or that behavior that I have, or that feeling that I am experiencing on a constant and on a daily basis, why am I making it so important? You understand what I'm saying? And I know that from the rational, this is something that is not to be taken from the rational point of view. It needs to be taken from, you know, from the heart, from the feeling, right? Ask yourself, and this is the challenge for today. I want you to ask yourself, whatever your story is, that it is important to you because you were the only one who lived your story. You were the only one who had the shoes, that you had to pass through the painful experiences or through the sorrow or whatever, right? Again, it's important to you to know that and to believe that that was something that happened to you, right? But at the same time, you need to evaluate whether you want to continue giving importance to your past, right? Or rather, you want to make use of the information that you have gathered in your brain in terms of memories as part or as the fuel, right, to drive you to the future. Okay. In other words, you know, whatever it is important, how can you make that something meaningful? How can you make that something purposeful in such a way that it can be beneficial to you and beneficial to others? And I'm not saying that your story, right, has to be important and you have to tell your story to people uh, just to show that you're a victim, because that is not the case. That is not putting the significance, right? Nobody likes to hear, the pain of others without any outcome, any positive result, right? What people want to hear is, wow, I mean, you passed through all that thing, but at the same time you were able to overcome that, right? And what people want to know at some point in time is, the hero within yourself. What people want to be able to listen to your story is, how were you able to overcome, all of the difficulties from the past, right? Because that's what really makes what that this is what the real hero journeys is all about. It's about, overcoming the darkest moment, overcoming your fears, overcoming, you know your feelings, your negative and toxic feelings, and your sorrow, being able to overcome those, bring them to light, right? And then, experience something different, right? So bringing darkness into light means passing through your own hero's journey in such a way that, you're able to see the future, and you're able to see that at the end of the tunnel, I mean, that hero has overcome so many difficulties in life, right? And now is ready to get into a new, different, meaningful adventure, right? So that is what you need to put into perspective when you ask yourself, um, why your past is important, right? What are the portions of your life that are important to you and that need to be resignified, of course, and what things you need to let go, right? Sometimes in the past, you need to let go of the feelings that you have from the people who hurt you. That is a sad, uh, not a sad, I'm going to say a true reality, right? You need to let go that. You need to let go because at the end of the day, the people who have hurt you in some ways, they they didn't know, uh, or they didn't have the wisdom, because of course they at that time, um, they have other types of knowledge and other types of experiences, and we need to understand that every single person passes through their own experience of life. Okay, and I'm going to give you a very clear example, right? um, this is something that, I mean, you're going to read in the book, but I've mentioned it a couple of times. I was a victim of, not only, physical and emotional abuse as a child, but I was also a victim of sexual abuse. And the people who actually, got into molesting me, and this is, I'm talking about, people who I didn't know, and even people that I knew, right? Um, those people, they acted because of the memories and the experiences that they have also passed, right? So the one thing that I can understand about them is that despite the pain that they caused me, right, they also suffer. They also pass through very uh, deep shit, right? Of course, they choose to use their path and their experience in a different way, right? I chose my path in a totally different perspective. And I had, of course, I had to pay some consequences and some big prices on that. But at the end of the day, I understood that I was not the only one suffering, right? The aggressors, they are also people who have suffered. So when you are able to understand those things, and you may be thinking, I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to accept that. It's up to you. Again, it is up to you to remain with the dark feeling of, no, because that person did this to me, or this person did that to me, or simply, allow yourself to get into the feeling, compassionate feeling, that you were hurt. But at the same time, that feeling does no longer make part of yourself. You don't have that portion of your life, doesn't need to remain important. The emotion that once got repressed, that's a part of your whole experience that you don't need to continue feeding. You don't need to continue giving value in your mind, right? But what you can actually give importance is the fact that, despite the fact that I passed through that, despite the fact that I passed, all those experiences, I was able to understand that those people, okay, they hurt me, and life somehow um, took care, right? There's something that is called karma, took care of those people, or those souls, behaviors, activities, responses, whatever, right? So give yourself a chance to resignify and really consider what is it that now in your new self-image, in your new version, what is it important? What is it that you want to achieve, right? And how do you want to use your experience from the past? How do you want to use that to help other people? That's the secret of resignifying your story. That's the secret of becoming your own hero in the hero's journey. Okay. And that is the secret of passing through the process of transforming yourself. Now, you need to understand that this is a process, this is not a medication. All right. This is not something that you pass from one day to the other one that, you just like take the pill and next day, you don't have any more pain. No, it takes time. It takes self-awareness, and at the same time, it take it takes self-compassion, it takes self-love, and it takes um, respect. Okay, I'm going to leave you with something that um, I found it very interesting to as an analogy of transformation. So when you have a glass of water, let's say that water, imagine that water is filthy, you know. Uh, how do you change the water that is in the glass that is filthy? How do you change that water and you turn it into crystal clear water? And there's many ways that you can do that, right? I mean, you can drop it and you can just like pour the new water. But again, if you take that into your life, there's no way that you can actually, like flip over, you know, somebody push you over and take all your memories out and you're going to be clean next day. Doesn't happen that way. um, there are other ways in which, little by little, when you start pouring clear water over the filthy water, eventually all that filthy water is going to come out and it's just going to dissipate, and eventually the glass of water is going to become a glass with purified water, despite the time that it takes, you know, for all those things, filthy, dark, to come out. So that is the process of awareness that you need to have in mind. That it is a process, and there's nothing more beautiful than you showing your own vulnerability, but at the same time, you being the witness of your own transformation. That is magic, because that's when you really gain the awareness that you are powerful, that you are able to overcome so many dilemmas um, on your own, with your own thoughts, with your own feelings, and that you are, the conqueror, that you are the king of your own and the master of your own mind, right? Uh, Not because somebody told you that you have to do it or somebody told you that you had to transform yourself. No, because you really put yourself into the hero's journey, uh, challenge to do yourself. This is uh, the purpose of this 21-day challenge that I've been sharing with you, right? Because I knew that the first day, and this is something that you can witness, from the first day, the first experience of the 21-day challenge that I shared with you, and make the comparison up till today. And this is something I'm not telling you to, to make myself bigger or higher than anyone. No, but I am witnessing my own inner transformation. And I have to tell you, we still have a couple of days before we finish finish the 21-day challenge, but I am already experiencing my own transformation. I'm already experiencing my own uh, healing by just by sharing my story, by sharing the things that I know, the knowledge that I know, by being an instrument to whoever is been listening to my series, right? And it just makes me happy that I know that from the bottom of my heart, God is using me in some way to help somebody who is passing through a similar situation, someone that may be passing through a transformational process, because it is a lonely process, of course, but at the same time is a process that, it's been transformative. And believe me, if tomorrow, I passed away or I die, right, at least um, I will have the honor to take with me the memory that I was able to share with someone who listened to my 21-day challenge and who witnessed some sort of transformation, because that helped that person to transform himself as well, right? So thank you for listening today. We're going to continue tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. And remember that for the challenge today, right, you need to question what parts of your past are important, what parts of your past do you want to resignify and bring, as part of your experience into the future. What is it that you can use, and what are the things that you want to leave behind, right? um, Take time to do that, because it's important. All right, God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.